council meeting agenda for Tuesday, May 16th, 2022. It's 23, isn't it? Sorry, it's 23. Members of the public can view council meetings on YouTube or Facebook, or they may attend in person in the council chamber at the Provo City Center. I remind participants to mute your microphone when not speaking to minimize the potential for background noises and conversations to be picked up, recorded, and broadcast. We'd like to recognize our Executive Director, Justin Harrison, our legal, Brian Jones, Councilor Bill Fillmore, Councilor Shannon Ellsworth, Councilor Rachel Whipple, myself, Catrice McKay, Councilor Dave Shipley, the Mayor, Michelle Kafusi, and Wayne Parker. The opening prayer today will be provided by one of our Boy Scouts, Adam Boroman. And he's welcome to come up, but we would like to recognize that we have the Scout Pack number 1 and the Boy Scout Troop number 1. So Adam, thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee so much for this day and for this wonderful opportunity to be here. Please bless that we can get business done here and that we can learn as a Scout troop and that we can get things done. And in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you. Love it. The Pledge of Allegiance will be provided by Councilor Rachel Whipple.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we continue with public comment and business portion of the meeting, we'd like to express our condolences over the passing of Cindy Richards, a former Provo City Councilor. Just this month, Provo lost one of its most influential leaders to a long battle with cancer. Cindy Richards was a tireless advocate for Provo, and more especially for the pioneer neighborhoods where she lived and raised her family, and for the residents who lived there. Cindy served as a member of the Provo City Council for 12 years, from 1998 to 2010, and continued her community service up until the end of her life. She was a mentor to many community leaders, including neighborhood chairs, her fellow council members, and others. Her fingerprints are all over Provo as she supported the work of neighborhoods, nonprofits, and city government in advancing the causes she so deeply believed in. We express our heartfelt sympathy to her husband, Buddy, her children and grandchildren, and to the people of Provo whom she served so well. I'm one of those people that she mentored, and I luckily got to get to know her before she became too sick, and I'm just grateful for the service that she gave to the city and how much she loved the city of Provo. We also are going to hear from Isaac Paxman. He has a great announcement for us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be in Provo and to be serving. I was at lunch today with a good business founder in our community, and he was talking about how amazing Provo is and how he can't imagine any place better to be involved in public service than in Provo, Utah. Not the national level, not the state level, not any other city on the planet. This place with these mountains, with this university, with these people, these families. And we've all had similar feelings, I think. I remember starting out in my career, we were living in Las Vegas, and I liked Las Vegas, but I thought, wow, if I could ever move to Provo, what a thing that would be. Provo's this amazing place, and I think a lot of us have felt that. But what an amazing thing to have a third party that's a respected group give us a recognition that we've received. If you haven't heard already, we have our display here of these 3 trophies. We've been named the best performing city in the United States by the prestigious Milken Institute. As Wayne Parker pointed out as we were talking with our employees today, there are lots of rankings, and some of them are by magazines or websites, and you never really know how those work or who's doing them. But here's a respected institution that is saying this place is the best performing place. I wanted to read just a couple of excerpts from their press release. The index, published annually since 1999, reflects cities' effectiveness at leveraging their resources to promote economic growth and to provide their residents with access to the essential services and infrastructure needed for success. Its components include job creation, wage growth, and the high-tech sector's output growth. Since 2021, the index also includes includes measures of housing affordability and broadband access that reflect access to economic opportunities for city's residents. And you can get on their website and you can see our score on each one of those. And it's amazing to see how well we scored in each of those areas. To continue on from the press release, I'll quote here from our own Mayor Kafusi in the Milken Institute's press release. I am proud to see that the world is taking note of this remarkable place where the majesty of nature surrounds a thriving hub of tech activity and educational opportunity, creating unparalleled quality of life, said Provo, Utah Mayor Michelle Kafusi. Quote, for the Milken Institute to recognize us for 3 straight years as the nation's best performing city is a thrill and an honor. The award is data-driven based on metrics like job and wage growth. But behind our impressive metrics are the amazing people that make it all happen. It is they who should be most proud of this award. I was there when the mayor received notice about a week ago confidentially that this would happen, and just had that moment to reflect on it. And I hope for all of us, and it was a powerful thing to just take some time. We're all engaged, you're engaged, and the community thanks you for your hard work. We know that it's not easy. You can't please everyone, and there's so much that's the nature of what you do. It's of a community. In any family or in any community, no one gets everything they want, and that's the nature of public service too. No one gets all we want, but this is our chance to take a step back, if we haven't for a while, and say, wow, despite not being able to do everything every one of us wants to do, there's something amazing happening here. And of course, it's attributed to people like Cindy Richards in the past and many others as well. But we hope that all of us in this community, not just you impressive city council members, public servants, the mayor, but really our businesses, our families, everyone takes this opportunity to feel this pat on the back from a respected outside institution that this place is really exceptional, as the mayor has highlighted. So thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. As indicated on the screen, a required public hearing will be held for certain agenda items prior to council action. After each such item has been presented, time to comment will be provided for all those who wish to speak. For items that do not require a public hearing, public comment will still be taken following presentation of the item, but will be limited to 10 minutes. At this time, up to 15 minutes have been set aside for an open public comment period, which is intended to allow comments on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Persons who speak during this time to an item that is on the agenda will not normally be afforded a second opportunity to speak during the comment period specific to that item. During any public comment period, each speaker will generally be limited to 2 minutes. Due to noticing requirements, no normal action will be taken in this meeting on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Those with comments are invited to approach the podium. Those participating on Zoom will need to use the raise hand feature to indicate they wish to comment. The chair may choose to alternate between in-person and online commenters. Please begin your comments by stating your name and your city of residence. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who'd like to give public comment? All right, if there is no objection, we will now recess the Provo Municipal Council meeting and convene as the Redevelopment Agency of Provo Governing Board by unanimous consent.
Great. This is the Redevelopment Agency Governing Board. We will hear a resolution to tentatively adopting a proposed budget for the Redevelopment Agency of Provo City for the fiscal year of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And this will be presented by John Borgett. If he's here. Is he here? Oh, or Kelsey Zarbach. There they are.
Good evening. I'm Kelsey Zarbach with Finance. I work with John. So tonight, 2 weeks ago on May 2nd, the Redevelopment Agency Board was presented with the tentative budget for the Redevelopment Agency for fiscal year 24, which starts on July 1st, 2023 and would go through June 30th, 2024. And so tonight, you're not adopting the budget, you're just tentatively adopting a tentative version of that budget, which kind of creates that baseline for the rest of the budget process during which the board could make changes. And so there have been 2 weeks for the board to review the budget, and now we're just asking that this resolution to tentatively adopt it be approved. Any questions?
Thank you. We will check with the board. Are there any questions from the board on this?
Not seeing any. Thanks, Kelsey. We will open the item for public comment. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to this item? Okay, not seeing any. We can take discussion from the board if there is any. Not, or is there discussion on the item? No. All right. Okay. Then we will invite a motion to adopt the resolution as proposed.
I move that we adopt the resolution.
And I will second it.
Terrific. Is there any discussion on that motion? Right, not seeing anyone. We will call for a vote from the board. Board Member Whipple,
Yes.
Board Member Shipley,
Yes.
Board Member Handley is excused. I don't think he's online, right?
No.
Board Member Fillmore,
Yes.
Board Member McKay,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hoban is excused, and I, Chair Ellsworth, vote yes. So that is the only item that we have for the Redevelopment Agency Governing Board, and if there's no objection, we will adjourn the Redevelopment Agency meeting and convene as the Provo City Stormwater Service District by unanimous consent.
Okay, so we're reconvening as the Provo City Stormwater Service District. And we are looking at a resolution tentatively adopting a proposed budget for the Provo City Stormwater Service District for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024. And will this be presented by Kelsey? Yeah.
Okay, same deal as the redevelopment agency. This was presented 2 weeks ago for the Stormwater Service District Board to review. And I neglected to mention earlier that with this and then also the city budget that we'll look at later, there will be opportunities for public hearing in June. And so that will be noticed and residents will have a chance to comment and weigh in those meetings. So anyway, this is just, again, the baseline for the Stormwater Service District budget. Any questions?
Any questions for Kelsey? Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this item for public comment. Okay, any discussion on the board? All right, I invite a motion to adopt the resolution as proposed.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Bill beat me.
Bill beat you. All right, thank you. We will call for a vote on the motion. I myself will say yes. Vice Chair Whipple,
Yes.
Board Member Ellsworth,
Yes.
Board Member Fillmore,
Yes.
Board Member Hanley is excused, Board Member Shipley,
Yes.
and Board Member Hoban is excused. So that is unanimous with 5-0. Now, if there's no objection, we will now adjourn the Provo City Stormwater Service District and reconvene as the Provo City Municipal Council by unanimous consent. As the Provo City Council, we have an implied motion on a resolution tentatively adopting a proposed budget for Provo City Corporation for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024. And this will be presented by Kelsey.
Okay, last one. So this is for the city budget, the proposed fiscal year 24 budget. The total expense budget amount is $342,048,943. Again, is our baseline to consider. The council's had multiple presentations from departments over the past several months to understand what was some of the decisions going into this budget. There was a thorough presentation last council meeting on May 2nd. And so just for the benefit of the public, this has been an ongoing process and public will have a chance to weigh in the upcoming public hearings in June. Any questions?
Any questions for Kelsey? I think we're okay. Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks. We'd like to open this item for public comment. Any council discussion? Councilor Whipple.
So I think it's interesting that Kelsey said that we, had all these presentations, so we know what went into making the decisions for the budget. But I want to push on that a little bit. We had all the presentations, so we know why the departments were asking for what they asked for. But I don't feel that I actually know why some of the things that they were asked for were funded and some were not funded. So that part of the decision making is still a little opaque to me. And I imagine it's just a matter of necessity, but there was some sort of a prioritization there that I haven't gotten that reasoning.
Any other comments?
I'll just make one comment to Council Member Whipple's response. Tonight's proposal is just to have the tentative budget adopted, and I think the plan is over the next month or so, and maybe even longer, if Truth and Taxation is considered, to discuss and learn more about what those requests are and why certain things were funded and were not funded. And I would just mention that the directors are happy to come in and respond, as well as administration, to answer any of those questions. But this is just kind of the beginning process of the council's reviewing the budget.
Thank you. And I really appreciate all of the work that you have done on it at the financial department and all of the departments that contributed to it. It is a Herculean effort and amazing. And so that would be something that I would love to know as we go forward, because I know that our departments wanted all of the things that they asked for. And that will help me to know, why some of them did not make the cut in this particular version. But I have no problem tentatively accepting the tentative budget so that we have, something to work with to talk about. Thank you.
Right. Any more discussion? All right. I'm going to call for a vote on the implied motion. Vice Chair Whipple,
Yes.
Councillor Ellsworth,
Yes.
Councillor Fillmore,
Yes.
Councillor Handley is excused, Councillor Shipley,
Yes.
Councillor Hoban is excused. I myself, McKay, will vote yes. So that is unanimous at 5-0. Next is an implied motion on an ordinance amending the general plan of Provo City to include general plan map amendments previously adopted in ordinances 2022-31 and 2000-22-38 and 2022-56 citywide application. This was presented by Brandon Larson, our planning supervisor.
Good evening, council. So we've got just one slide up there for you to look at. So, of course, we adopted a new general plan and general plan map at the start of the year in January, and when we prepared that map, the associated map with the general plan, we inadvertently left off a couple of map amendments that had occurred at the end of 2022. And so when that was brought to our attention, we talked with legal, and they suggested we come back to you and put forward a general plan amendment to incorporate those three map amendments that didn't make it on the amended map from January. So, right, let's go here. So up in this box, so there's two boxes, one here and then one down there by kind of getting close to the Utah Lake State Park and the airport. So right there, there's a piece of, it went from mixed use to commercial. And then right there is, that went from mixed use to residential. Those were actions done to facilitate some potential development on those properties. And then this one down here went from residential to airport related activities. So those again were approved map amendments at the end of 2022. And so this proposal is simply it's a cleanup proposal to make sure we get those on our newly adopted general plan map. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer those.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.
Any questions for Brandon? All right, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this implied motion? All right, any council discussion? All right, well, we'll call for a vote on the implied motion. Counselor Ellsworth,
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore,
Yes.
Counselor Hanley is excused, Counselor Shipley,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban is excused. Myself, McKay, yes. Vice Chair Whipple.
Yes.
Right, and that's 5-0, so unanimous vote there. Next is an implied motion on an ordinance amending Provo City General Plan Appendix C regarding annexation map and policies. And this will be presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Thank you, Council. So this was, as was discussed earlier in today's meeting, this change is to areas 5 and 6 on the map in front of you to give property owners the opportunity to annex into the city as agricultural zone rather than open space zone for those properties that have been and continue to desire to be agricultural use. So that's what's in front of you for this one. I don't have much more than that unless you have any questions for me.
All right, any questions for Aaron? Counselor Shipley.
So to clarify, the open space zone wouldn't allow for somebody to continue using it as an agricultural use?
That's right. Yeah, the open space zone is very specific to parks and recreation activities, and so the ag zone would allow a variety of agricultural activities to
Right.
continue. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
We will open this up for any public comment. Goodbye, Cub Scouts. We are glad that you came. Bye, Boy Scouts. Thanks for helping us out today. All right, I see no public comment. How about council discussion? This is our first hearing. The Planning Commission has heard it. All right, shall we vote on the implied motion? Counselor Hanley's excused. Counselor Shipley.
Yes.
Counselor Hoban is excused. I myself, McKay, will say yes. Vice Chair Whipple.
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore.
Yes.
And that again is unanimous, 5-0. We now have an implied motion on an ordinance amending the zone map classification of approximately 2 acres of property generally located at 2075 West Center Street from one family residential, R18, to mixed use and authorizing a related development agreement. This is in the Provo Bay Neighborhood and it'll be presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go through briefly the slides that I shared at Planning Commission to give us some background here, and hopefully answer a couple questions that came up today during today's session. So if, sorry. There we go. Okay, so to orient you, this is the property with the zone change request on it. It's just for the north portion of the property where it gets a little thinner. Just north of 130 South is where the zone change is being requested. You can see there that the concept aligns with the recently adopted mixed-use zone, providing over 10,000 square feet of commercial space in the north building, and then split between, I believe, 24 units in the north building and 36 units in the south building. Parking has been part of the discussion on this. The standard, the mixed use zone standard was approved with language that gives developers an automatic 25% discount from the typical parking rate. So you could see there that where typically 155 spaces would be required, 117 is the result of that reduction, and the plan shows 120. Now this is part of the concern for staff on the parking is that whether these are sold or rented, if they're owner occupied, I think there might be some risk of underparking this project. If you look at the standard regulations for parking, you are left with only 15 for the commercial space, using the standard without the 25% discount. That equates to about 1 stall per 666 square foot of commercial space, which is the most comparable is a warehouse, what we would park a warehouse at. So there's some risk there, some concern there with the parking standard that's being applied. Floor plans and elevations, I can go back to those if you'd like. Those were discussed quite a bit at the Planning Commission levels. This was heard a few times by the Planning Commission, and this latest concept has addressed their concerns of leaving the highest and most intense building to the north, and then kind of scaling it down towards the south as you get to a single family zoning. The general plan, Councillor Shipley, you had asked earlier today about the kind of the leftover acreage west of this property because staff is recommending that we only rezone the north acre. The request is for 2, how the property to the west kind of would fill that in. Those properties to the west fill out to be about 1.3 acres in that mixed use bubble. So it is comparable with the increased density he's asking for, the increased acreage he's asking for in this request. If we could pull up that PDF I sent earlier, I think as I went back and kind of thought about what we talked about today, I think this map helps give us a little bit of context. So this is the general plan map, or was the general plan map before this very recent general plan adoption, which changed some things. But this is the map that informed the Southwest future land use map. You could see all that red area was in the general plan just as a straight commercial designation. And that red area is approximately 23 acres. And I think that's important background as that kind of informed, we wanted to say, yes, that's commercial, but let's also bring in mixed use. So I think that acreage in that bubble was stemmed from kind of this map here. I just thought that'd be helpful background as we did discuss that a little bit earlier today. And then going back to my slides, thank you. So again, we're supporting the north acre. Not to repeat myself, staff thinks there is some risk with expanding these bubbles. You can see multiple lower density, medium density bubbles on the west side. If this sets a precedent for expanding those bubbles, that can really get out of hand for all these multifamily zones, and that's a concern that staff has. So that's kind of the basis of our recommendation to sticking to the 1 acre. And I believe that covers everything I had prepared for this one, unless you have any additional questions for me.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? Councillor Shipley.
Yeah, can you speak to the parking a little bit more? So, I understand why there would be a automatic, decrease allowed for certain projects, certain places with mixed use. I mean, obviously this is a node of the city or a place in the city where public transportation isn't really prevalent. Most people need cars. So I guess I can understand where there would be concern from staff, but was that the primary concern, or was there a certain number that we had suggested to the developer that they get to and they just didn't? I mean, tell me a little bit more about the background on the parking consideration.
Sure. So when these mixed use zones are written, there's a few areas that we were looking at with some of the neighborhood plans, the major plan, the Franklin plan, where we could anticipate these being in. These are more kind of urban infill sites where we anticipated a better walkable situation, better transit in the area. As you mentioned, this isn't one of those. It might be someday, which would be great. But right now, you really have to bring your cars to this site. So an automatic reduction is, of course, the developer is taking advantage of that because it's in the code and it makes sense to take advantage of that. But even though it is in the code, staff still does have some concerns because of the walkability and the transit availability in this area.
So when this was initially brought to staff for consideration, was the automatic reduction there at that point? And was staff's response to that early, hey, we don't really agree with this, with the parking situation? And then that was just avoided through this process, or has that changed in any way? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to get some context for why we would, go through staff and planning with the same parking reduction, with potentially both those entities saying like, look, this is a hard area to park this way.
Right. So yes, the mixed use zone was adopted already. And within that, it already had that automatic 25% discount. So when that zone was chosen to be applied here, it was natural to go after that.
So we'd
The
have to
second part of
change
that-
the policy.
We had to
like,
change the policy, but the
for
second part of
certain
that
areas or something like make it
right.
more.
We've talked about it internally that we might need to do that, looking at this, but we haven't done that yet. As he's gone through this process, parking has been an issue. The former concept plans were even asking for additional reductions. So we've been trying to say we need more parking. We need more parking. We're just not there yet. We're not comfortable with that part of it yet.
As a follow-up, is there a certain amount of parking that staff had suggested? I mean, was there a suggestion made at some point? Like, look, this is the number that we'd be okay with?
I think the standard parking counts would make more sense in this case. We could even look at having the planning commission look at a joint use, because some of these will be off hours, perhaps. We can, once we have that more defined, there might be an option for joint use, but that's a decision that the planning commission would have to make.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Aaron? Counselor Whipple.
So to follow up on the parking, I want to be clear that the parking that the developer is proposing is consistent with the current standards we have now.
It does. It does meet the code. Yep.
Okay. And so the problem is not so much with the developer's proposal, it's that our code may not be appropriate.
Yeah, I think we didn't anticipate this type of development in this spot, and we might need to relook at that.
Okay.
That's correct.
So that's not the developer's fault then. That
Right.
would be something where we have learned that maybe a standard we set up isn't working and we need to change it. But there's no reason to penalize somebody for operating under that standard if we're reconsidering it, right? Because that's what they have to work with.
Sure.
Okay. The next question, can we go back to the little image that you had earlier from the older general plan that was following the parcel line? Yes. This is great. Is there a way that we can overlay the current bloop onto this? The current general or Southwest general plan has softer bubbly lines.
Yeah,
that are
it kind of drops down into here, right?
Mhm.
And comes out over like that. So it follows pretty much this line. It's just not as rigid. So if you imagine all these hard lines at 90 degrees became soft lines and curve like
So there
curves,
are
it's essentially the
areas
same.
within this 22 acre chunk that's designated as pink that are not within the bubble that's in the new Southwest General Plan. So
Repeat that question.
let's see. I don't have a
You're-
pointer.
You're trying to overlay the soft bubble over each parcel.
Oh. Oh,
Elizabeth has skills.
they have skills. This is great.
But the issue being that when that was created, and I was part of the West Side Planning Advisory Group or whatever, is those bubbles were intended to be bubbles. They weren't intended to match parcels, and they were intended to be soft lines and concepts, not.
Right. And a bubble is something that can be squished, right? It's got some flexibility.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that if we squish it a little bit so that it bulges out to the bottom, then we've just narrowed it to the side a bit. And you still could preserve your 22 acre with that, right? Bloop.
The concept is sound. Yes.
Okay.
I think we're just going to see it differently, but yeah.
Probably. And I noticed in our general plan map, this whole area, we used big fuzzy lines and everything so as to avoid hard, sharp boundaries so that we wouldn't have a discussion where somebody's like, well, my parcel is this and it has to be this. We wanted the flexibility.
Right.
And the reason I asked, if it's possible to overlay the two images is it looks like the southeast corner that's not within the pink area is going to be included in the bloop of the new one.
You're talking about
No, up,
Up.
over, down. So this little area.
that.
So that would be
Yeah, some of that
included,
definitely got taken to the bubble. Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay, that was all that I was checking on. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Any more questions for Aaron? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Now, are we going to hear from the developer, Aaron? Yes. Okay. Okay, no problem. We are going to hear from the developer, Steve Turley.
Thank you very much for your time. I flew my drone down Center Street and I was really excited to show it to you, but it's really hard to make technology work when it's complicated, because that's my problem. But if I were to take you down Center Street from I-15 to the west, I would be showing you a tired corridor, a good corridor and a ripe corridor, but a tired one. And the pharmacy went out of business, and the other gas station goes in and out of business, and now Wendy's has gone out of business. I can't think of a place immediately off of a freeway that's that tired. And so when I had the opportunity to look at your vision for West Provo, it was inspiring, and I want to be part of that. And I want to share with you my vision, which I think actually coincides with your vision. I'd like to share my screen with you and get these little things to hand out in case I have any technological glitches. Is that okay, Chairwoman?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. And it's nothing fancy, but I hope it hope it gets us up and going.
Is this information that you're giving us the same that was in the packets so that it's also available to the public?
It is. It
Okay.
is. It is.
Thank you.
So I am going to walk through this screen. The very first page in front of that little packet I've handed out is the project itself. Lakeview Crossing. Thought that was kind of a cute name, where two highways converge there. And you'll notice this presentation. It's difficult because we're showing you 2 acres of property that front along Geneva Road. The picture at the bottom is the commercial corner. It's the north building. You'll see that commercial is exactly what's been specified in the mixed use zone. And then we've got the 2 stories of residential units above them. It's really hard to show 2 acres without losing perspective. What we try to do on the north building is we try to make it high. We try to make it have that intensity on the north side, something that the west side can be proud of. As you travel west on Center Street, you're going to see that high profile building, and it's going to be a good looking building. But then we were asked to, and I think it's appropriate to taper the intensity to the south, and so you'll see that towards the left or the south part of that lower building. You'll see that we have our rooftop amenity there, and that's open space. It has a canopy. We'll talk about that. Councilor McKay was kind enough to point out to me what might be confusing in the development agreement that we proffered to tell you what amenities we want to put up there. But then you'll notice that mid building, the east front elevation south, if that isn't confusing enough. We wanted to scale that building down from the north to the south. So by the time you got to the furthest south elevation of the building, it was 2 stories. So if we have a 2-story home that's immediately across the street, we would have we would be on the same scale with a 2-story house. So at the very top, orientation on that drawing shows how that would actually look as you travel down Geneva Road. So to the right is the 3-story, and then to the left, the far left in that south elevation is the 2-story. So the second drawing, the second image shows you how that would actually present. And I just wanted to put the site plan next to the elevations, even though it's really hard to show because it's 2 blocks. I think you get an idea of how that would look as you travel from north to south or along Geneva Road. But let me share with you what I hope is hits the target, hits what we were trying to do, what we're all trying to do out there on the west side by giving it a really good shot in the arm. The commercial services, the retail space is over 10,000 square feet. And to put that in perspective, that's a 58% increase of new commercial space out on the west side in that particular area. As far as the residential units go, these are 60 affordable townhomes, 3 beds, 2 beds, 1 beds, and studios. These are the variety of housing types that we have heard loud and clear that we have the appetite for. I want to be very clear. These have always been anticipated to be condominiums. Our anticipation was that they would be platted as condominiums, that they would be built as condominiums, all individual metered, all available for sale. And if there was ever a comment that was construed as apartments, it was never intended to be the case. The rooftop amenity, I used to do this professionally. We used to put rooftop amenities together in 7 Western states, and it's a fabulous addition that I hope Provo embraces. I've been upstairs to your rooftop amenity, and ours is gonna be a little nicer, but it's on par with the great views, the great opportunity that the residents there will have to have a safe place to congregate, to hang out, to play. And we've got some pictures available. I think you've seen them in the Planning Commission submittals that show what we're hoping to do. Patio, kitchenette, canopy, sun deck, barbecue, fire pit, exercise space. Now, it says exercise space. It was intended to be like exercise space, but then someone really twisted my arm. We need to include pet exercise space as well. So I didn't want to lose that. Gardens, lounge furniture, and then also storage as well. And Councilor McKay, I have as to any clarification that you've asked earlier about including that in the development agreement, the wording that we included in that was simply to say that if the site plan changed as far as square footage goes, that we would change the square footage accordingly for the amenity space. But the intent to always include those specified amenities is there. And if someone can wordsmith that better, I'm thrilled and happy to include everything that we have on this and then previously provided on the development agreement, the wording there. As far as the site plan goes, The zone requires 117 stalls, and there's 120 stalls provided, which reflects the 75% reduction. But it's not that we're losing stalls, and I'll disagree with Mr. Ardmore respectfully. The reason why we can talk about a 25% reduction is because the commercial spaces won't be used at night, because the residential spaces will be using those spaces, and vice versa. Hence the reason why there's the mixed use reduction in that parking. We're asking for no reduction beyond what the zoning asks for. I'll also tell you that we hired the same engineer that did the parking study for Provo, and Hales Engineering took a look at this, and I'll show you this. It's later in the packet, but it recommends that in that mixed use capacity, there's only 90 stalls that will be needed at that site. And while that sounds to be underparked, they're quite confident in the recommendations that even at 90 stalls, there will be an adequate parking on the site. And we're providing 30 additional stalls, or 25% more. There will be 50 covered stalls, and we're going to be putting electric vehicle chargers in every one of those covered stalls, and have asked for no shared parking reduction beyond that. The bike access, we're thrilled. Provo River Trail, the Center Street has bike lanes. The Geneva Road, 2050 West has bike lanes, and then that connection will eventually go to Lakeview Parkway. So the bike lockers and the bike station repair, or bike repair station, Councilor McKay, I am thrilled and happy to include that in the proffer. It was always intended to be there, and just because it wasn't included in the development agreement, wasn't that we didn't have an intent to put it in. I'll also bring your attention that this is a hub of transportation. This is at the hub of transportation corridors. People worry about traffic. I-15 is a half mile away. You've got these two arterial streets that bound the property, and then I'm going to show you this cute little map that shows that the bus route 833 is across the street. So the intense uses on the Center Street side, tapering to 2 stories to the south, landscaping. There'll be a tree canopy on all hard surfaces and out at the street. And then there's that connection to 130 South. But I want to get into this. It seems like the big enchilada here, and I want to talk about this map here. And I want to talk about, as you guys are very familiar with it, I want you to flip to that the sheet if you can. That has this on the top, and it has this on the bottom. And I want to walk you through this really fast because it's if I mess this up, I'm going to be in real trouble. I'm going to walk through this because how do I do this? Catherine, could you help me? Do I stop sharing and start sharing again? There we go. Thanks. See what Catherine can do. Okay, so this is the Google Earth image of the west side, and I want to walk this through with you really fast because I think it's important. And I did this exercise with Public Works, and they confirmed that what we talked about was the real deal. Our parcel sits right here. As planning goes, we were informed and recognized that street that I just clicked on right there, that is 130 South, and that's required to be part of any development that we do. And as we recognize that, that's a pretty logical boundary between what goes on. The blob, we'll have to give it a good name, but the fuzzy boundary, whatever it is to the north and east is that. The blob to the south and the west is there. The Village Center commercial is the 22 acres. And I want to really emphasize that. And it's not a boundary discussion, it's a capacity discussion. And the reason why 22 acres matters is because it's 22 times the 30 units per acre that the council has determined that the density for that area should be. And so when we talk about this 22 acres, I've included that sheet in there to talk about the acreage and the capacity that the sewer, the that the sewer capacity was built for on that west side. As we get into this discussion here, I'm gonna share with you that this is where our project sits, and I'm gonna go really quickly through this. This is D&L Trucking. This is your station number 4. And I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit here. It'll be a little more helpful. 7-Eleven sits across the street. The Family Dollar is across the street to the north. Car wash, the laundry, the Subway, and Smith's maybe. I had a good conversation with them last week. And I'm going to put a question mark there so no one gets excited that perhaps we're delivering something that isn't there. But to understand the context of the neighborhood or the area there, I went in to try to understand what the boundaries are of this project, of this area. And for our discussion purposes, you guys told us that this was supposed to be MDR, this area over here towards the freeway. And you said that it was supposed to be 36 acres. Well, when we went boundary for boundary for boundary on this one here, it is 36 acres. And when we went to the park to the north, it was 4 acres as was on the map. And then the existing park was also 13 acres. So we're tracking exactly what the map said. So now we get to the blob. And if we can talk about the blob here for a second, I'm going to turn off those logos because they're kind of obnoxious. And share this with you, that if we get to this blob and we're looking at that circle right there, Public Works worked with me and we confirmed that blob right there on that sheet of paper that you have is represents 28 acres. So when we look at that, this spreadsheet that I've included in there is to be a discussion about that to help educate you guys to understand that capacity issue that we're talking about. So that blob right there is 28 acres. So why is it 28 acres? Doesn't make sense, right? It's supposed to be 22. It's supposed to be, and it says it's 28. Well, I can tell you what, when you get into the details of this, and it is kind of gritty, but we're not talking about developing the roads. So we take out the 3 acres there. And when we take out the Fisher Farm subdivision, those brand new nice 2-story homes that just went in there, that's we're not going to be encroaching on that residential neighborhood. We're not going to encroach into the Mokai Park Place townhomes or the Mountain Air subdivision, or we're not going to cut into the fire station. And so as we start removing all this acreage from the Rosewood Estate subdivision, you'll see those numbers. We're going from 28. We're down to about 18 right now. And then when you add in the Family Dollar and the 7-Eleven, those aren't candidates for redevelopment. Those were built. I mean, Family Dollar was built 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and the 7-Eleven was built a handful of years before that. So those aren't candidates. And as we look through this thing, what was that 22 acres supposed to be? Well, when you take out the stuff that can't be developed, you're down to 16.5 acres. So now we got to find the acreage that is supposed to be part of that 22 acre allocation. And I just want to, in fairness, these are blobby drawings. And so on the east, we've got to add back in that acreage there to the east, a couple more acres. And then to the west, I'm hoping that there's a redevelopment appetite for those very tired facilities that lie outside the bubble, but I think should be included in the bubble. So for our understanding purposes, we went boundary by boundary with the folks in Public Works, and we said, is there a hard boundary on the east side? Sure there is. There's the east boundary that's hard because we don't want that to encroach into the residential neighborhood. And how about the southeast? Well, yeah, we don't want to encroach into that neighborhood, or to the south where the fire station is, or to the southwest where the Rosewood Estate subdivision is, or the west where the new Fisher Farms subdivision, or the north where that other one is, and the northeast where the other park is, and then down on the west side, I think it's pretty fair to say that that we would be encroaching into a residential area if there was any appetite for anybody to do any development south of Center Street there. And the same thing on the east side where that existing residential is. Well, so you get to there and you're at 18 acres. 18 acres. So 18 out of the 22, we got 4 more acres to find. And there's that additional capacity, but we've also got 4 more acres to find. And I would suggest that it makes perfect sense to include the south portion of our property in that. That only gets us, it's our additional add is 0.79 acres there. And that only totals up 18.77 acres. I know this is tedious and I appreciate you hanging with me. I've been working on this for a year and a half. I've been working really patiently with staff. I've been really working patiently with all the issues that we've been trying to chase when Planning Commission encourages us to develop 2 acres, and then we kind of get we kind of work back and forth. We're trying to do what's right for the city, and we're trying to follow these plans that have been set forward by you and others to try to make development right there. But we're talking about if we get to right there, and if somebody wants to push back and say, no, Steve, pull out the Family Dollar and pull out the 7-Eleven, we're still not up to 22 acres. So you have the capacity to do this if you have the will to do it. And I would say that the compelling thing here is that we're providing the kind of product that you want. We're providing that mix of housing types. We're providing that commercial, that much needed commercial for the west side. And we're encouraged by that we can park it. We're encouraged that we can make all those details come together on a challenging site, but the right thing in the right place. So I am happy to discuss some of the issues. Public Works have been pretty clear. They've said in both Planning Commission meetings, there is no issue with sewer capacity. They have adequate sewer capacity and they can handle this project there. If there's any question about whether this follows the general plan, if you'll flip to the next page, the future land use specifies, you'll see we've highlighted everything that's there that says these boundaries are intended to be fuzzy. These boundaries were intended to give you the freedom to be able to find a good project that can make those boundaries make a lot more logical sense. The expectation is we do the 30 units an acre. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it hasn't been too boring. It's an effort on our part to help you do what I think is what we all think is the best thing for the west side. I'm grateful for your time. I've got a lot of passion for what I do, and I hope that this is the right thing. If there's any suggestions, I'm open to them. The issues that you brought up, Councilor McKay, I've added to the development agreement, the bikes, the bike repair station, the bike lockers, the solar, the clarity as far as the
Solar, what
amenities.
solar?
Pardon?
What solar?
We're putting solar. We want the electric vehicle charging ports to be solar powered.
Okay.
And there was one other thing that you asked, and I just wanted to clarify.
I'm interested in the condominiums. So what is your
Yes.
definition of a condominium? Like, so are you going to sell them all then, or?
They are all going to be for sale. They're all going to be individually metered. They're all going to be, it's going to be platted as a subdivision. So unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, all of them can be individually owned.
That's great. So is there going to be any kind of, there's going to be an HOA, correct?
Correct.
With the CCNRs, are you going to do anything as far as that they need to be owner occupied for the first couple of years, or something to de-incentivize an investor to just buy them all up, or?
To be candid, we were doing a rezone and we were talking about a concept plan. And as you can see, we've got a lot deeper. We're talking about locations of bike lockers, that kind of thing. So a bit of a surprise to us. Honestly haven't gone that far, but it is not intended to be an apartment building. And I regret if that word was ever used throughout this discussion.
Well, I think it's great to have smaller square footage to provide first-time home buyers options. I think that's fantastic. Any questions for Steve? Counselor Whipple.
Yeah, thank you for going through the property and everything with us. So my understanding is that as we've been doing traffic studies and things for these different developments, we are finding that, people will ride bikes and use transit and things like that, but they're still bringing cars. So they may not be driving the cars as much, but they still have them and they still want to park them somewhere. Which is probably why our standard for parking and the reductions is not balanced with the way people are actually functioning in the real world right now. We haven't shifted it so people are fine being like one car families and things like that. It doesn't seem like that would be a problem unless you are like booming with your commercial. Right? So if you have a really bustling commercial activity, especially if that commercial activity is going into the evening hours, then I think you may have a conflict with your parking issue. Have you thought about that at all? Or did your parking study look at usage of the commercial property? Did it look at certain hours of operation?
That is a great question. If you could flip in the back portion, I'm gonna lose all the stuff all off of here. So anyway, in the back portion of this
The Hales Engineering.
Biobound thing, we included, and if you look on it, it's Hales Engineering's report, but it's page 4. You'll see that this graph down here discusses the use of the shared use of that. You'll see that the retail, I think that's orange. You'll see that the different bedroom counts are depicted in the different blue, green numbers. But you'll see that the peak demand is at 90. And Councilor Whipple, I share your concern, your acknowledgement of what could be a concern. And so when we started looking at the commercial uses, I'll be really honest, we got a lot of encouragement for people saying, hey, of course you're gonna have a really good restaurant out there. And we looked at those numbers and I can tell you what, there's a demand, there's a peak demand, obviously in those food hours, that type of thing. We had So Delicious, very interested. We leased to them at another site. They're very
Well, you
interested.
don't need parking for that. You just need a drive-through.
Yeah, but we don't do drive-throughs in the mixed use zone. That's right. But we looked at that, and I got to tell you what. Then I'm sorry. There is a guy that won't leave me alone, and he's a physical therapist. He said, I want 6,000 square feet. He said, I want to be by the high school. I want to be by the athletic fields. And I'd never even thought of some kind of marketing opportunity for a physical therapist. And quite frankly, I don't know if that's what the West Side really needs. But the zone limits what kind of commercial can go in there. And we trust your planners to make those kind of decisions. I think that it's going to be it's something that as a owning that space and the property owners association that would be there is going to have to monitor that hard and make sure that there isn't an incompatible use that goes in there. If there's any suggestions, I'm all ears. If the planners have any sort of suggestions, I thought that they addressed that as much as they could in what the zoning allows in that area.
Yeah. Well, I like that you tell us to trust the planners, even as you're asking us to go against our planners' recommendation. So that's kind of a fun thing.
I will tell you, your planners are very capable and they do a fabulous job. I will say that their discussion about not allowing creep, if you will, of this everybody asking for a little bit more density is very valid. And I will tell you, if the next guy that comes in here, the next person that comes in here that wants to expand their bubble, just have them go through the same exercise that I did. You find those boundaries and you make sure that they don't go past 22 and we'll be fine.
Okay, on the back of Rachel's parking thing, like I think about your 3-bedroom, right? So you could have 3 students, they'll probably have 3 cars, or you could have a husband, a wife, and 2 kids or teenagers. That's 4 cars. Like when you're at 1.3 a unit, I just see trouble there. I mean, what if you have a crumble? I mean, you'll be open till midnight and have people there, overlapping with the home residents. There's definitely there's a lot of commercial that would conflict with residential parking, I think. I just think it's a quality of life issue that I'm concerned about. We've made those mistakes throughout the city in different areas that, they're still complaining about it and fighting about it in areas, and we can't go back and fix that. But I would hate to make an area that has the same problem, because you can't park on 2050, right? Or
You
on
can.
Center Street.
Oh, yes, you can.
Is there
And
parking on
Center
2050?
Street would not be a place to park.
But there is parking, street parking on 2050.
There is.
Okay.
But Counselor McKay, I will, if we were coming close, we would be having a lot different discussion. But when our parking professionals, your parking professionals say that at max capacity, we are going to be 30 stalls overparked.
Yeah,
At max
I
capacity.
guess I don't believe them.
And which I completely have to defer to them, as we defer to the professional planners, we defer to the professional parking planners to figure that kind of stuff out. And is there a risk there? I think there always is. My hope would be that, and if I could do this fancy little thing here, I could show you the bus stops across the street. If we're
Yeah,
trying to,
they'll still own a car though. It's just like, I agree with Counselor Whipple on that. Any other comments for Steve?
I have another
Counselor Whipple?
thing. So I'm looking. And this may be silly, but I notice you still have 351 West Center Street as the address for the Provo City Attorney. Just saying.
they're not receiving a lot of mail over there, are they?
You're not the only place that I found this today, but that's one thing. But as Chair McKay was saying, I don't see anything in here that would indicate that these would be condos or that these would be for sale units rather than rental units. Would that be the type of thing that would be? Oh, you have a different thing there.
The clarification, may I give this to you?
Yeah, that's not in the packet that I have.
So, I didn't want to confuse what was being asked. The Planning Commission asked for a development agreement specific to the rooftop amenity. So that was what was prepared and what you saw. The other questions that have been asked as far as clarifications go have been added to that, and so I'm proffering right here, right now, that text on that to be included in the development agreement.
So the language about condos refers to the way that it's constructed so that they could be sold as condos and insured separately and everything else. If they weren't built with those specifications in mind, then it wouldn't even be a possibility.
That's correct.
So you would be proffering to do those additional construction costs, so it could be a condo. Whether it ends up being rental or not, you're still putting that extra money into the project.
Absolutely. Separate metering on everything, separate addressing. The plat would reflect individual ownership opportunities throughout.
Okay.
So this says, here, let Shannon, Bill, look at this. All covered parking stalls will be wired for EVs. Are you putting in the EV wire stations, or are you just wiring them for them?
And here, I am, there will be electric charging ports at every covered parking stall. And in the last project that we did, we included all those in there. If there's better wording, the intent is for every one of those to have the plug. Sorry, it's technically a plug. The ability to individually meter every one of those. I do want to say, for what it's worth, just finished a project not too long ago in Provo, and the development agreement was at this level, and we exceeded that. And I invite any of you to come over to the Spring Creek Townhomes.
I'd love to go see it.
You're welcome to anytime.
Okay, Dave, we'll have to go.
And it was nice to be able to put in a splash pad that wasn't required. Did it cost a lot of money? Yeah. Did we add significant cost to the exterior because it was the right thing to do? We did. Come by anytime. You're gonna see a project that was something to be proud of.
I do think it's sad that with 60 units, you've only got 50 covered stalls. 10 of those units aren't going to have covered parking, Steve.
Well, we don't live in a perfect world. We'll find a way to maybe get some other ones covered there. So
All right. Any more questions for Steve? All right.
thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, council discussion. Oh, back to public comment. We haven't done public comment. That's correct. Public comment on this development. Oh, Dave's coming up. Okay, give your name, Dave, and what city you live in.
Dave Lewis. I live right in this neighborhood, so I live in Provo, and I like the project. I like the way it looks. If you could pull up the one picture of the elevate or the site view showing the roads, that would be great. So it's in my neighborhood. I like it. I like the commercial. I like the yes, the picture on the right. So I know there's been some discussion saying, hey, we'd be okay with the top portion of the building, but we're not okay with the back portion. To me, it's as far as planning is concerned, I mean, there's obviously going to be a road that will, I don't know what road that is, but at the bottom of the proposed development at the top of the farm field, that road's going to come through. That to me looks like the right separation for, yes, leave that single family homes. Yes, it's going to be more dense. Looks good. I'm looking forward to the commercial that's going to be in there. I understand there needs to be enough density for it to pay for itself. And so I'm supportive as is. And I hope and I encourage you to do the same. Thanks.
Any other public comment? All right, council discussion. Councilor Fillmore.
Well, I'll be happy to lead off. I'll say first that I like Mr. Turley's project on its face. I think it has potential, and I think the neighborhood needs refurbishment, if you will. It might even be a catalyst for some good things along West Center. So if I'm just looking at it by itself, I see this is a really interesting project. And I see a developer who's worked hard to accommodate some of the suggestions from planning. But I'm torn because I do see that potential for high density creep, right? The word we keep getting from the west side is help us build single family homes, help us build startup homes, help us build move up homes. And I'm a little fearful that if we adopt this project, we're setting a precedent on the west side, contrary to our general plan intentions. And maybe I'm not understanding all the nuances, but that's kind of straddling the fence. I'm just not convinced either way at this point.
Councilor Shipley.
Feel like I need more time with this Hales engineering report. The fact that there are 40 studios or single bedroom, units makes a little more sense with the amount of parking potentially. I think most of us on the west side have this condominium development that happened north of us on the Orem side of the border, where everybody's over parking all over Geneva, and it gives me a little pause with any projects, along Geneva anywhere, that might happen, where we just try to park all along, Geneva. And Geneva's already on the Provo side of things, a little bit of a complicated road, for bikers and for further. So anyway, it causes a little bit of a safety concern for me to feel like there's maybe a potential of Geneva being parked like that. The hard thing is I would love for something very successful from a commercial standpoint to be here. So I can't have my cake and eat it too. I want commercial activity there. I want things that are good for the west side there. I would love to see something new and interesting come into this spot. So overall, I don't have any heartache at all I guess I will say this, I don't have any heartache at all about having this 2 acres be part of the project. That's not a concern for me at all. I don't share the idea that because to the east of this on the blob, or the west of this, excuse me, on the blob, that it was part of the circle. Somehow we've got to keep to that, because obviously when they cut through those residential properties, they didn't have that in mind. They didn't have them in mind to tear down 2 or 3 residential properties on that development to the west at all. And they didn't. And then there's that, the Fisher Farms has been alluded to. I mean, we're not going to tear down those brand new homes, that are just there to create some density there beyond what just barely happened. So I guess I agree with the idea that the 2 acres is fine. I need to study and think through the parking situation a little bit more. I'm glad they got a study. I don't want to disagree with the study, but I'm sure that the folks on the Orem side of Geneva did a study as well. And now we got 50 cars parked on Geneva every day that create a little bit of a safety concern up there. So that's my primary reservation. Having said that, as a West Side resident, I really want something like this. I really want additional housing opportunities. I don't believe that it's putting 60 units over there all of a sudden is creating, a multifamily, feel or atmosphere for the whole West Side. I mean, when you look at that future land use map, it's covered with more single family home opportunities. I mean, as these farmers sell out, there's going to be lots more single family homes that get, detached single family homes that get built on the West Side. So I don't look at it as a mutually exclusive thing. I don't think this is going to somehow take away the opportunity for a bunch more single family homes, to go in on the West Side. So I'm not concerned about that at all. For tonight, and maybe I've already used too much time in this context, I think without Councilman Hoban here, I don't think we should take a vote on this. So I would move that we continue it. This is Councilor Hoban's district. I would like his input on this. And even if he disagrees with me, I'd like his input. I think it's important for him to have a vote on this. So I don't know if we want to continue discussion. Technically, I think we just move on when it's been continued, but I don't want to continue it without hearing from the rest of the council. I don't want to shut down the discussion.
I'll second continuing it. Counselor Whipple, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I actually agree with Councilor Shipley's reasoning. I think having the elected representative for this district there is a very important thing before we vote on it. So that's a good reason to continue. And I think we've had a good discussion. We can talk about it more tonight, but this will give us another opportunity to hear from the people who live in this area if they would like to speak.
Chair McKay, I just thought to point out, this is a first hearing from the Planning Commission, so you don't even actually need a motion. As long as there are 2 counselors that express desire for it to be continued, it'll be continued by rule.
Great, thank you. Now, is this something developer Turley has offered to do more in the development agreement? Is that something he can work with development services in the meantime for when we hear it again?
Sure. Yeah. Development services, myself, we can all work together. And if there are things that need to be put in the draft between now and next time, we can certainly make sure that that's more concrete.
Like our address?
Yes. And in Mr. Turley's defense, I'm sure that was in the template we sent him, not his fault.
Oh, I fully believe that's our department's issue.
All right. So that's a wrap then. Okay. Thank you, Steve, for coming and for taking all of our questions. All right. Next is an applied motion on ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding development landscape requirements. And this is Citywide Application presented by Hannah Salzel.
I'll try to keep this brief since we discussed this pretty extensively in the work meeting. If anyone's interested in more of the record, they're welcome to refer back to the YouTube recording for that. Just point out the major things that residents watching for the first time might be interested in. This is an attempt to standardize some of the language in the code. We're not really changing a lot that would affect residential landscapes. A few different percentage shifts, but nothing more than 5%, permitting a little more flexibility in coverage in landscapes under 4 feet or park strips under 4 feet. The biggest shift is encouraging larger trees in parking lot by shifting the landscape parking strip standard from 5 feet to 7 feet, just like we adopted a 7-foot park strip to allow for larger trees, adding more spaces in between the landscapes so that we still maintain the 20% landscaping, 80% parking coverage. And then getting rid of the diamond stalls or the diamond landscape strips. We can't widen those to 7 feet and keep the stalls. They're bad for snow plows. We've tried them out a few times in Provo, and several departments expressed support for just getting rid of them. These changes apply to parking lots only with 6 or more spots, so it's only for the larger ones, hopefully not a burden on smaller lots. And then updating the diagrams to show the shift I was talking about with the wider strip and then going from 3 to 5. Those are the major highlights, trying to keep it brief for your time. Any questions about this?
Thank you, Hannah. Yes, we did talk about this earlier. So
Yes.
thank you. Any questions right now for Hannah? Okay, so we are going to be voting on this, Hannah. So as just for the record, as we discussed earlier, we'll vote on this as is, but our goal is to address the artificial turf and all of the landscaping stuff and have you guys come back to us to redo that information.
Yes, we'll talk with Parks and Public Works and see what their recommendations are. And as soon as we've got something, we'll bring it to Planning Commission and you, hopefully within the next few weeks.
Great. Thanks, Hannah. All right. Any public comment on this? I don't think so. All right. Council discussion. I think Shannon just wants to say a lot about this. No? Nothing. All right. Okay. Oh, Councilor Whipple will say something.
Yeah, so it looked like Lisa Jensen had helpful comments for the diagrams and everything. Were all of her suggestions incorporated?
They were.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just shout out to our planning commission people for going through this so carefully and making it clear for us.
Yeah, we're really lucky.
Okay. Thanks, Hannah. All right. Well, we'll call for a vote on the implied motion. Councilor Handley's excused. Councilor Shipley.
Yes.
Councilor Hoban is excused. I, McKay, will say yes. Vice Chair Whipple.
Yes. Yes. These microphones, they have a delay and sometimes they cut out.
Councilor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Councilor Fillmore. That was a yes from Ellsworth.
Yes.
Okay, so that was unanimous 5-0. Thank you. Thank you. An implied motion on an ordinance to amend the General Plan's Appendix S Downtown Master Plan to update the document policies, graphics, and data. And this will be presented by Bill. Lucky you.
So you talked about this in your study session this afternoon. Does this work? Do we have any graphics with this? So I think Javin went through pretty clearly what we're trying.
Oh, here's Javin.
You're lucky because I was about to mess it all up. So.
Oh, I just want to make an entrance. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. What am I saying? Okay. Thanks for having me here today. So Downtown Master Plan, we went through and updated this document, and it's been a really fun process. To catch you up, we added this document to our general plan in 2015. We've added subsequent parts of it with the UTA stationary plan in 2019. And now we're adding in some appendices to the master plan, which will be part of the appendice of the general plan, which detail our public outreach process for this. One question I have for you, and we can talk about it next time or at a subsequent meeting would be whether to add in the what TMAC evaluated for Center Street, and if this is criteria that you'd want to have added into the downtown master plan. And maybe a recommendation I might have is if we need to add any revisions, make sure TMAC is fine with that, and then we can bring that back to you. But that's not part of this revision right now that's being discussed specifically. So why are we doing this? We've had so much growth happen in downtown, and we've had our general plan updated. So this neighborhood plan reflects the update of the general plan of all of those policies that have happened. So you can see on the screen, we've had numerous buildings that have been built downtown. As you're walking in the area of downtown though, you do get a sense of we've had a lot of growth. We have new restaurants, we have new shops to go to, and you can see that as you wander downtown. And I think citizens can really see that too. And to broaden your horizon, this is from the Ken Gardner Policy Institute. Utah County is going to grow population over 600,000 people. Utah County employment is going to grow over 300,000 jobs, and there are huge implications that that will have for Provo, as we are the county seat. We house lots of government jobs from the state to local to the major universities, and downtown is going to continue to absorb that growth of employments. Downtown Provo, we've grown a lot, and it's been great. We've grown over 3,000 people in population, and housing units, almost 1,000 more housing units since 2015, just in 8 years. Now, the downtown master plan includes almost all of downtown and parts of a few other surrounding neighborhoods around downtown, but majority are just in the downtown area. But what this shows specifically is where we're seeing the growth happen within this area. And the one that has so much growth is South Temple. So between the Provo City Center Temple and the tracks, we've had 87% growth between 2015 to 2023. I think that's huge. And you're seeing that with the growth happening there. Now, what have we done? I talked about this a lot earlier, but I will say in regards to that, the respondents we got, we did have swag that we were giving out, and we told the citizens, if you bring us, showing us that you completed the survey, we'll give you this. And people are really motivated for swag. But we had a great respondents of survey, the people taking our survey, when we did an open house and the farmers market. The things and some highlights of the survey is that majority of the respondents live in downtown Provo. Majority of them are on par with Provo City stats for demographics, and a lot of them come to downtown Provo almost daily or once a week. Where do they go? Pretty much everywhere across the board is pretty even, but restaurants take the top spot. And these was an open-ended question, but these are stories or things that people would like to see within downtown Provo. One that I found interesting is the zero waste refill store. So these are things that we can look at and see, do we have these in our zoning code? And is this the appropriate place for it? And making sure that we provide that use within the city. How do you get to downtown? People drive, but a lot of people walk or bike. And if you drive to downtown, where do you park? On the street, but some park in other modes, whether garage or off street. If you would like to live downtown, where would you like, what type of housing stock you'd want to have? Majority, if they want to live down here, would want a townhouse. And if you would like to live downtown, most people want to own rather than rent. And people generally feel safe walking downtown, but not as much biking. I think there's improvements that we could do, and how can this plan facilitate that? And a few word clouds. What do you think of downtown Provo? It's cute and fun, historic, definitely. Favorite changes, the temple, murals in downtown Provo. What's your least favorite thing about downtown Provo? It's parking, surprises nobody, especially me, but new skins on there too, so, you know. So one change to this plan is the future land use map is shifting to have any area on the map that's going to be changed. We will highlight any areas that are not going to be changed. will just be kind of grayed out. So the biggest changes to this document that have happened between 2015 and 2023, this map is one of the bigger changes. It does reflect the other neighbor plans for this. This was discussed at Planning Commission, and it was decided that consistency between all plans helps not only the citizens, but helps staff and developers as we use these as guiding documents. We also went through all of the graphics were updated, from figures to labels to text, lots of little things that were updated within this plan, and reaffirmed the goals of this plan, whether they're within this document and to make sure that they align with the general plan. Now, one thing with this, actually two things. You don't see a lot of changes proposed within this future land use map. That's because a lot of this area already is what staff feels is the appropriate zoning for this area. We do have some areas that we looked at, talked with developers, and saw that they would be best fit to allow to upzone these areas as that demand comes, to have that ready to go. With the growth that's going to happen to the county, we feel downtown Provo is going to feel that flux of growth. Now, one goal within the plan is to draft the TOD zone. We currently have the ITOD zone, but we don't officially have a TOD zone by that title, I'll call it. So if there are some concerns within that area that's identified in the purple, some of those we could look at as we work on drafting language for that zone to maybe alleviate some concerns we have. Are there any questions for staff?
Any questions for Javin? Counselor Whipple.
Thank you. So Javin, I've been looking a lot at the downtown streetscape design standard, which is Appendix Y, which is not referred to in this document. They're just both different attachments to the general plan, because we've been considering some slight changes to the requirements for parking on 100 West for just one block of it. And the parking or the street design for 100 West is mentioned in this document on page 34 briefly, but it's not super specific, even though there is a general kind of plan for what it would look like. Is there any problem with doing a modification for, one block of that street with it and adopting this tonight, or do we need to adjust something?
There's text in this document that allow for flexibility for that block face specifically, because 100 West has the, what do you call it? You're going down to New Skin and
The pedestrian bridge? Where it's cut off.
The ramp.
Yes.
The ramp going down.
Mhm.
And where startup is, with the flexibility for those specific areas, we added text in there saying that modifications can occur between where that block is and where startup block is.
So the standard,
There's flexibility with that cross section for those locations.
so the standard that is kind of described on page 34 is generally what we want along most of that stretch. But because there are specific circumstances, maybe with particular blocks, this is not completely hard and fast. We can adapt this.
Correct.
Oh, that's fantastic. Something else that I've noticed on here is that it recommends that Center Street not be redone all at once as part of the language there. And is that in there as a business consideration? Like, we don't want to have 2 years of construction on Center Street that would kill all of our businesses?
What page are you referring to specifically?
I don't remember. I just wrote it
Because I
down.
remember in the staff report for this, that included the what TMAC evaluated on those for that matrix table. So that's not what's being discussed tonight. But I know that discussed part of Center Street specifically for that. So that might be where there might be maybe some confusion.
Okay. The other thing that in our last meeting, we talked about changing commercial parking requirements for Center Street for, these old buildings that we've got here. We don't need to incorporate that. That's a separate thing.
Correct.
It's just related because it also happens to be the downtown.
Correct.
Okay, so I understand that well. The last thing is my objection to indicating that we want to change the zoning for our mobile home parks. And I mentioned that this is the general plan. I'm mentioning it again. I know that those are areas that look like prime redevelopment, but I see that as deeply affordable housing that I would like to preserve and protect. So I won't vote against this plan, even though I'm opposed to that one little portion of it. I just want to state this opposition on the record. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Javin? Thank you so much, Javin. All right. I'd like to open this item for public comment. All right. Council discussion. All right. We will call for a vote on the implied motion. Counselor Shipley.
Yes.
Counselor Hoban is excused. I myself, McKay, will say yes. Vice Chair Whipple.
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore. That was unanimous. Oh, Counselor Handley is excused. So it was unanimous at 5-0. All right. We have continued the Provo City Development Services request, text amendments to section 1434-60. And if there's no objection, we will now adjourn the Provo Municipal Council meeting by unanimous consent.